So today we are talking about The Later Daters on Netflix, and it is so good. I can't tell you how good it is. I want to first tell you Michelle Obama was the executive producer of this show, and so like you already had me with that, you know what I mean? And this is for basically men and women who are older, above like 55, looking for love and how to like address like, oh my God, dating apps and all these challenges that they have. And I know so many of you, even if you're not above 55, can relate. And, you know, honestly will resonate with you, will give you true advice and tools and guidance on how to find love. And so I think seeing these people that they casted who are struggling and they're like single for like 15 years, 12 years, or whatever it is, so many different stories, you can relate. And so pay attention, you guys. Listen to this podcast episode. I hope it lands with you, and I hope you end up binge watching it like I did this past weekend. It was so good. The other thing that I want to say too is that, you know, this dating coach idea, like I'm Jackie Loor, you're a love coach and dating coach, right? I feel like so many people don't realize the power of a coach and what they really do and what they bring to your table, right? And so Logan Ury, who's just an awesome dating coach, she also wrote a book, How to Not Die Alone. She was on the show, she was a dating coach for these people. And so I really did like a lot of the things that she had to say. 100 million% me and her are very different kind of energy, different kind of what we bring, but it's okay. Like that's what I love. Everybody's so unique. Everybody brings a different energy. And there's some things that she did say that are gold, and I will share that here with you too, so you can have those takeaways. So let's just jump in. So you have Suzanne. You know, let me tell you, Suzanne was such a character. I absolutely loved her. She has so much energy. And she had, you know, her natural, beautiful, crazy, awesome hair, like that's all gray already. And she's just embracing her authentic self. And her kids are so supportive on her journey to find love. And she's a Georgia dog, like football fan. And so like, this is my biggest thing with her. And I feel like listen to this, and I hope that you can open your mind up that this is maybe possibly a problem that you may have, just like Suzanne. She was like, if you're not a Georgia dog fan, it's bye time. You know, I tell you, I'm always about the bye-bye. And I'm like, you know, find out if you're aligned, move them out of the way. But is being a Georgia dog fan really a deal breaker? It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. And so in the beginning, you see her really leaning into how that's so important to her. And if you're not a Georgia dog fan, it's not going to work. So that is a massive limiting belief that she had. And the other one that she had too was some of the guys that she went on a date with had young children. And so like, I was curious, like I wanted to ask her, like, wait, why is young children a problem? And so then she did end up sharing on one of the confidentials, like if you have young kids, and by the way, young to her was like 16 years old, right? And her kids are already grown, like in their 20s or whatever. And she's like, yeah, that means they like young women. So it's interesting that I feel like her insecurities were kind of creeping in there with some of these limiting beliefs that she had, you know? And so she goes and dates, you know, you see her going on these dates and how she navigates it. She's such a great ball of energy and she's so lovable. But that being said, I feel like, was she being intentional? Was she being vulnerable? Like, I think that's one of the things that I loved about Logan, the dating coach on there. She was really pushing these people to get out of their comfort zone, to truly be more vulnerable and not play the game and not play hard to get. Like Suzanne was kind of playing hard to get and, you know, it's going too fast. And, you know, and I think that Logan was giving really good advice in a lot of these moments and these people. Did they necessarily take it all the time? Not really. And, you know, I don't know, perhaps like that is part of the process. You know, like for me, I have clients in their 20s, like late 20s, 30s, and 40s, right? That's the majority of my clients. But I do have 50-year-olds and I have 60-year-olds. And actually, like, it's interesting. I do think that what they all share in common, everybody, honestly, is that at least the women that I work with, they have a growth mindset. And they're willing to be challenged. So I appreciate that these people on the show, the later daters, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm not living this last chapter of my life alone. So I love that they're reaching out for help, but can they actually put into action the the advice that Logan is giving to them, you know? And so Suzanne, I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. I'll end off with that, saying that Suzanne had awesome, great options, and she's such a great energy to her. But I love who she ended up with. She does end up with somebody who I thought was such a great match for her. And so I'll leave you to actually see the show so you can find out who she chooses. I want to talk about Anise. Anise is such a badass. I loved her. And I want you guys to hear this when I tell you. She's like 62 years old. She's such a badass mom. She lost her husband at a really, like, when her kid was like 2 years old. So it was really hard for her. But like the way that she has been just like a force and kept going and got her doctorate, she's a badass. And I absolutely love Anise. And it was so powerful to see how she was sharing how a lot of times she doesn't want to brag about who she is and what she's done. And like, I have had this exact problem, obstacle come up with some of my clients. And I am so done with you guys playing it small. Like, I do feel that, oh yeah, like we have to be humble, like don't brag, don't toot our own horn. But I just feel that we do not celebrate our achievements enough. I really feel it's so important to show up your authentic self on a date, and it's not about bragging. It's about saying this is what you've accomplished and what's been really important to you. And a secure man would never be threatened by that. They would actually be, oh my gosh, supportive of that, cheering you on, be inspired by you. Like, I know my husband of 17 years, he has, on our first date, and this is what I'm all about. So if you make sure you're following, hit subscribe and listen to me, because I am living proof that this way to show up on a first date authentically, vulnerably, but also like celebrating who you are and what you've accomplished does attract the right, healthy, secure relationship. And so like on our first date, I said to him, how, my mom raised me to be, and my parents have raised me to be like this little feminist, like, hey, get it done. And they're immigrants, and I'm like Latina, my mom's Cuban, my dad's Ecuadorian. Like, my mom lost everything and had to work really hard, and she put that mindset in me. And I'm very much like that, very career driven. And I've had boyfriends in the past that are not supportive of that. I've had boyfriends where they're very traditional, old school, women stay at home. I'm the provider. And so I now learn from my lessons, these lessons that I've had with the boyfriends. I'm like, I'd rather not find out months down the road. I'd rather find out on the first date. And so like, this is what I'm all about, is the crazy love method, right? I tell you that you show up with your heart on your sleeve, and make sure to ask those questions to find out if they are truly aligned to you and what you really want in a partner. And so like Anise was saying on the show, she's like, I don't want to brag. And I'm so happy, and I was so like just proud of her, how she really grew on. You could see how vulnerable she was becoming, how she was opening up and sharing who she really was and being proud of it and getting more comfortable in saying it. Like, that's another thing. When you first go on a date and start navigating it with such intention, I always, tell the women at first it's going to feel super weird and uncomfortable. But the more that you do it, you become really comfortable in it. You start to feel really empowered and feel like, oh my gosh, I could do this. It's really a skill when you start navigating dating with intention like that. And so like fearlessly. And so Anise started doing that. And oh my gosh, the man that she found in her life, I absolutely love him. As soon as they saw each other, like, honestly, that's really how Will and I were on our first date. It really felt like magic. And that's actually something that all my clients always say when they're working with me, and they're like, when they find their person, they always say that exact same thing. They're like, it felt like magic. It was just so easy. It felt like we're best friends. It was like this automatic, like I was drawn to them. I was leaning in. So there is that bit of magic, right? And so that being said, I don't want you to be like, oh, if I don't feel magic, then it's bye time. No, I do think that you got to get really clear on your worth. clear on what you want in your ideal partner, and I'm not talking about tall, dark, handsome, I'm talking about who they are, like qualities as a human, as a partner, okay? And then navigating that dating world, not with all the noise and playing the game and playing hard to get. It's like really being authentic and vulnerable and putting your heart on your sleeve. And so like Anise really did that. And because she did that and was showing up as her authentic self and proud of her accomplishments and not being scared that she was older than these men, and she was owning it, boom, magic happened. Because you start to repel the guys that are not for you. She repelled Nate, for example. Nate is another guy on the show. And Nate met her, and of course he was like for sure threatened by her because she's a freaking badass. And he's like, oh, she's older than me. I'm like, Nate, you can barely move. Like, listen, all due respect. Like, yes, he was in the military, and I think that's amazing. And thank you for your service. But that being said, the way that he said about Anise being old, like older, and he's like, oh, she's older. I'm like, Nate, let's keep shit real. Like, you are not active. You said this, and you said, if I dip, I'll never like get. How do you say it? Something like, I'll dip, but I'll never, like, he can't dance, right? And I'm like, listen. You have to be willing to get out of that limiting belief of like these certain age brackets. And I think that Nate was really in his own way on that. He was like, nope, Anise is 62, I'm 56. I'm like, that is so silly. That is. And I feel like as a dating coach, we need to tell them. We need to tell them that. And I don't know if Logan did or not, because obviously this is like a limited, you can't see every single second of whatever. But I'm not for supporting those kind of limiting beliefs. I am all about, who are they? What are their actions? Are they active? Like Anise is super active and awesome. That's the thing. Nate said no to Anise, but at the end of the day, Anise is really saying no to Nate because Nate isn't aligned to Anise at all. Anise is very active, wants to go hiking, wants to travel the world. She's adventurous. And the guy that she ends up with is exactly that. And so like I am happy that Anise had that really clear. But just note for Nate, if you're listening to this, Nate, like don't be in your own way. I do feel like having this age bracket in your head is going to stop you or block you from receiving the right partner. Because Nate does end up alone at the end of the show. And so like I am rooting for him. I'm rooting for all of you guys. Like seriously, everybody, everyone, life is better when you find your person, your partner, your best friend to do life with. It is. And I'm not going to lie to you and be like, oh, it's okay, stay single forever. Lies. Like it's not. And so like if you are being intentional, Nate, like seriously, I think that who you are, it's so great. And I'm moving into it. And what you've accomplished is so great. And I love that you were becoming vulnerable, sharing that story of like how you got injured and how you couldn't, continue in the military and what that did to you. I thought that was so brave of you, and to share it was awesome. But you did have these limiting beliefs, not just the age thing, but also you talked about like the children. Like Lisa was amazing. You guys, when you see this show, keep listening here, but also keep it in mind when you binge watch it. I loved Lisa for Nate, but Lisa had 2 kids that were living with her in their 30s. And he was I feel like he was judging that. And I think, he didn't do that for himself. He got his kids out of his house early, right? His daughter. And he was like, wants a life without kids. But I feel like instead of just jumping to those conclusions, like just ask her and talk to her about it and be like, hey, if this were to work out, how would that look like? Like, would your kids move in with us? Like, and ask. He didn't. He took, I feel like the easier route was to assume that she would end up moving in with him with the kids. And at the end of the day, that's a way to guard your heart. It really is. It's kind of like, let me just think that everything's going to go wrong and like, it's not going to work out. And it's sad. And so, yeah, that's exactly, he just jumped to a lot of conclusions, and he blocked and blocked people from really getting too close to him. And so like, I want you to see this with an open mind and see, is this something that you're doing in your love life? And notice how Logan tries to guide them. I really love Logan. I feel like she was great. I got to talk about Pam really quick. Pam was hilarious. I loved her. She's 70 years old, and she was like, had quite the story. And I don't want to ruin it, but one thing I will tell you about Pam, her past experience was so negative, and it felt like she was living there. And Logan really called her out on that and said like all these ghost stories that she keeps saying. I really want you guys to sit with that a little bit, because notice, are you living in the past? Are you keep telling these ghost stories over and over and on your dates? I do think it's important to share, honestly with people, like your story, but to a point. It's kind of like, I've been through this and I'm grateful for that. And I've learned this and I've grown from that. And I'm excited for what's to come. So it is kind of a mindset that's really important. Like, are you in that victim mode? Like, I've lost everything, my life is awful and continues to be. You're living there. Or are you like, I've lived it, I've learned, and I'm moving forward. So like, you really got to make sure you ask yourself, like, where are you? Because Pam was in the past. And during the process, you could see her kind of exiting the past and being excited about the future, which I absolutely loved. And then the last person I want to talk about is Lori. And Lori had like these huge glasses. Logan told her, take off these huge glasses, kind of like a mask. I so agree with Logan. As soon as she said it, I was like, yes, Logan, that's exactly what I was thinking. And Lori didn't listen. Lori's like, nope, not going to take him off. Like, this is already like, what are we doing? Like, Lori, if I were Lori, hello, it's like nothing has been working. Why not lean in 100% and listen to Logan? And so that really would be my advice too. And the other thing about her is that she was like, I loved how Logan said, and I always say this, right? Because I say crazy love is not crazy toxic. It's an acronym. A love where you can be completely real and authentically, zenfully you. And it's about feeling at home and at peace. And I love how Logan said, hey, Lori, you don't feel like home. Someone doesn't feel safe and at home with you. They feel like they're in an airport. And it's so true. I totally love that, because with Lori, it was like this, no emotional connection, no vulnerability. It was very like cold walls, interrogation. Let me ask questions, like checking the boxes, bye-bye. And I don't agree with that. And I'm telling you guys, I am about, that's how I did it. I wrote a list. I manifested my person. I know you can too. But what is on your list and how are you showing up is so important. Are you showing up like Lori with a mask practically on your face and like not showing up vulnerably? Are you being cold and interrogative? Because there can be no emotional connection if you don't have your heart on your sleeve. It's just not possible. So obviously Lori ends up alone. It's not a surprise either. You guys, I can't tell you how much I love the show. It was so good, so good. I want you guys to see it. Drop in the comments on YouTube if you're listening there what you thought. On Spotify, you could also talk to me there. Follow me at the Jackie Loor. Tell me what you thought about the show. I love connecting with you. And please remember, do not settle for anything less than crazy love, because it has to be crazy love or nothing. Till next time, thank you.